Hello? Funmilayo, can you hear me? We lost Dad.
The first time Funmilayo heard that her father was dead, she was standing in a cold kitchen in London, washing plates that were not hers, in a house she could never afford, with hands cracked from bleach and eyes swollen from sleepless nights. Her phone slipped from her hand. Daddy is gone. Her sister said from Lagos, voice breaking through a bad network and worse pain. Funmilayo looked at her sleeping son on the torn couch beside the heater that had stopped working 3 days ago. And for the first time since she left Nigeria, she asked herself the question nobody asks when they are shouting, "Japa, Japa, Japa." What if the dream abroad was the very thing that stole her life from her? And that was just the beginning. Funmilayo grew up in a noisy street in Lagos where life was hard, but love still had a way of sitting at the table even when food did not. They were an average family, the kind people called manageable. Her father, Mustafa Suleiman, was a driver in a bank. Every morning before dawn, he ironed the same faded shirt, polished the same black shoes, and left the house with the quiet dignity of a man who had accepted struggle but refused shame. Her mother, Iyafumi, sold bread in the market where she has a table stand for her bread. There were 3 children in the house. The eldest was Hajara, practical and sharp-tongued. Then came Funmilayo, soft-hearted but stubborn. Last was Ibrahim, the little brother whose laughter could disarm even the angriest mood in the house. Funmilayo was the dreamer of the family. As a little girl, she would stand near the airport fence whenever they passed that side of town in Ikeja and look up at planes like they were doors in the sky. She used to tell her mother, "One day I will enter one and change our story." Her mother would laugh and say, "Change it here first before changing it there." But poverty has a way of making distant things look holy. Funmilayo got into the Polytechnic of Ibadan. Her father nearly danced that day. He borrowed money, cut personal expenses, wore old clothes, and skipped meals just to keep her there. He used to say, "Education is the one luggage nobody can seize from you." But life does not always respect wise sayings. In her second year, things began to fall apart. Her father's salary was delayed for months. Her mother's bread market was not moving due to her chest pain she had developed from the business during the rainy and sunny days. Funmilayo tried to cope. She sold recharge cards. She braided hair in the hostel. She washed clothes for richer students. But there is only so much determination you can do when life has already decided to wrestle you to the ground. Eventually, she dropped out. She did not call it dropping out though. She called it taking a break. But breaks are dangerous when poverty is waiting outside. They rarely end. At home, shame sat with her like a roommate. Every time her father came back tired and sweaty from driving bank executives around Lagos Island, she could not meet his eyes for too long. He had done his best. She knew it. That truth broke her more than insults would have. Then Ganyu came into her life. He was charming, confident, and full of the kind of hope that sounded like escape. He had lived in the UK for a few years and came back to Nigeria with stories that sparkled. He talked about pounds the way people talked about miracles. He wore clean sneakers, spoke with light foreign swag, and knew exactly how to touch the weak places in a struggling person's heart. Funmi, he told her one evening as they stood outside a buka after eating the cheapest rice on the menu. "You are too smart to suffer here. Oh. Nigeria will drain you and call it character building." She laughed, but his words entered her. Ganyu began to paint the UK like a promised land. He said yes, it was hard, but hard work there paid. He said there was dignity in labor. He said once she got there, she would stabilize in no time. He said she would send money home, bring her siblings up, and maybe even return one day as the family's breakthrough. When you have watched your mother count coins before buying pepper, those words do not sound like fantasy. They sound like responsibility. Their relationship moved fast. Too fast, Ajara warned. That boy is selling a country to you, her sister said. Not love. But Fumilayo was already half gone in her mind. Her father did not like the idea at first. Not because he hated travel, but because he did not trust desperation dressed as opportunity. If the road is too sweet in someone's mouth, he told her, ask them what they are hiding under their tongue. Still, when he saw how determined she was, he yielded. Parents of struggling children sometimes do that. They loosen their fear and call it support because they do not want to be the obstacle standing in front of hope. Funmilayo left Lagos with tears in her eyes, fear in her stomach, and expectation in her chest. Her mother tied a small prayer cloth into her bag. Her father pressed money into her palm that he could not afford to give. Do not forget home, he said. She promised she never would. The scene was an emotional scene for the Adebayo family in the Muritala Mohammed Airport, Ikeja. Finally, Fumilayo was going to travel. They arrived at the famous Heathrow Airport, London, and that feeling was good. At first, the UK looked exactly like Ganyu described, and nothing like it at the same time. The roads were orderly. The buses came on time. The weather was cruel. The loneliness was louder than traffic. The smiles were fewer. The bills came fast. Rent swallowed joy. Transport had savings. Childcare was a monster. Yet compared to the frustration she left behind, it still seemed worth it. She and Ganyu stayed in a cramped shared apartment with two other African couples who had also traveled to the UK to find greener pastures. Privacy in that house was a dream, but to Fumilayo, it was still progress. She found odd jobs quickly. Cleaning, kitchen assistance, elderly care shifts when available. Anything honest that brought money. She worked with the hunger of someone carrying an entire family on her back. And she delivered. Soon, money started going back to Lagos. At first, it was small. Then it became consistent. She paid Ibrahim's school fees. She contributed to groceries at home. She sent money for her mother's medicine. She bought her father a new phone. Later, she sent a refrigerator, some clothes, and lots of cookies. Every alert she sent home made people bless her name. In the family WhatsApp group, she became the symbol of it is possible. Neighbors started using her story as an example. See Fumilayo, they would say. That girl has sense, so she left and now she's helping everybody. Nobody saw the nights she cried in the toilet after double shifts. Nobody saw the days she skipped meals to send pounds home. Nobody saw her feet swelling inside cheap shoes as she stood for 10 good hours. Nobody saw her lying to her mother that everything is fine here. Back home, her birth is often edited before it is advertised. 3 years later, Fumilayo got pregnant. It should have been one of the happiest seasons of her life. In some ways, it was. Ganyu was excited. He rubbed her stomach and made promises. They named the unborn baby in private before telling anyone. For a brief moment, Funmilayo felt like life was finally becoming soft. But softness never stayed long around her story. Ganyu had an older brother in the UK named Morov. He was smooth, manipulative, and jealous in the quiet way that dangerous people often are. He had helped Ganyu settle when he first arrived, and for years, he acted like that gave him ownership over Ganyu's life. Morov did not like how Ganyu was progressing. He did not like that Funmilayo brought discipline and peace into Ganyu's life. He did not like that Ganyu had begun to pull away from his shady dealings. Nobody knew the full details at first. What they later pieced together was ugly. There was money missing from a business arrangement Moruf was involved in. Documents surfaced. A false connection was built around Ganyu. Names were dropped in the wrong places. Allegations spread. The kind of mess that poor immigrants cannot easily defend themselves against began to form around him like smoke. Ganyu kept saying, "It will clear, I did not do anything now." But innocence is not always enough when you do not have the power. Things moved quickly. Meetings, panic, fear, silence. Then one morning, the worst happened. Ganyu was picked up. Funmilayo still remembered that day with painful detail. The half-drunk tea on the table, the cold floor, the way her head pounded when the door shut behind them, the way nobody explained enough but everything already felt lost. He called her once, voice shaking. "Funmi, listen to me, take care of the baby, I swear to you I did not." The line caught. And before Ganyu knew it, he found himself in the court in the UK of all places. And next thing, he was on a plane back to Lagos. He was deported to Nigeria after being found guilty of the crime. Just like that. No proper closure, no money, no plan, no stability, no husband, no safety net, nothing. Only a pregnant woman in a foreign country with a small room, unfinished papers, unstable work, and a thousand expectations waiting for her back in Lagos. And that was the day Funmilayo learned one of the life's hardest lessons. Sometimes, the person who breaks your life is not your enemy from outside. Sometimes, it is someone who ate at your table and called you family. The days after Ganyu's deportation were brutal. She could not mourn properly because survivor does not respect emotion. Rent was due. Her body was changing. Work became harder. Fear became constant. Calls from home kept coming. What happened? Is it true? So what will you do now? Can he come back? Will you return home? Return home? With what? Pride, shame, pregnancy, debt, failure? Funmilayo stayed. That choice would define the next 14 years of her life. She gave birth to a boy and named him Ismail because she told herself he would survive battles before promises. Motherhood hit her like a storm. No family nearby, no mother to hold her hand, no aunties to cook pepper soup, no sister to help her sleep. Just pain, stitches, milk stains, unpaid bills, and a crying baby in a room too small for grief. The romantic version of Japa ends where stories like hers begin. The first betrayal came from people she trusted. A Nigerian woman from her community in the mosque offered to help her find cheaper accommodation. Funmilayo gave her a deposit. The woman disappeared. Another man promised to connect her to a better paying care job if she paid for document processing. He collected the money and blocked her. A family friend back home begged her for urgent business support, swearing it would be returned in 2 months. it never was. At one point, she joined 3 jobs at once, cleaning offices early in the morning, helping in the kitchen during afternoons, and weekend care shifts where possible. She carried a smile on buses in winter because she could not always afford childcare. There were days she dropped him with people she was not fully comfortable with because hunger can make risk look reasonable. Once she was treated by a fellow African woman who underpaid her for months, knowing she was desperate and undocumented at the time. When Funmilayo protested, the woman shrugged and said, "If you don't want it, leave it. Many people are waiting." That night, Funmilayo sat in the dark and cried with the kind of silence only immigrants know. The one where even your tears must be careful because the child beside you is sleeping. Still, she did not give up because giving up is expensive abroad. Years passed. The UK did not become easier, but it became harder. She learned transport routes by memory. She learned which agencies delayed pay. She learned to read with respect before it landed. She learned that not everybody smiling at your accent is your friend. She learned that some people only love successful struggle, not ongoing struggle. She stopped sending money she did not have just to maintain an image. That decision caused tension at home. "Since you are in London, how can you say you don't have money?" one uncle asked over the phone. Funmilayo laughed bitterly after ending the call. London, as if the name of the city paid her rent. That was another lesson her life taught. Distance can make people romanticize your suffering. The farther they have from your pain, the easier it is for them to misunderstand it. Ismail was 10 years old already. He was smart, observant, and quiet. Too quiet sometimes. He asked one day, "Mommy, where is Daddy?" She froze. What do you tell a child when the truth is tangled in betrayal, migration, shame, and absence? She told him, "Your daddy is in Nigeria." He asked, "So why are we here?" That question followed her for years. Why indeed? For hope, for survival, for pride, for sacrifice, for a dream that kept moving the finish line. Kenyu called sometimes from Nigeria in the early years, then less often, then rarely. Bitterness entered his voice. Failure had changed him. Deportation stripped something from him that he never recovered. He blamed Moruf. He blamed the system. He blamed fate. Sometimes he even blamed Funmilayo for not returning. "With my child," he would say, "you chose that country over your family." She used to shake after those calls. He did not understand that staying was not always a choice. Sometimes staying is what happens when living has become more impossible than surviving. After 10 years, Funmilayo has been a really strong woman. She started building a house in Nigeria for her family, but with everything going on, completing the house seemed impossible. Funmilayo did not leave God. She did not abandon her faith. It was during her time in the mosque, a man had his eyes on her. His name is Mr. Taiwo. He is in his 50s with one wife and no child yet. He proposed to Funmilayo after several trials, prayers, and advice. Funmilayo accepted to marry him. Funmilayo got a better place because her son, Ismail, was now considered a citizen, so he was given the citizenship treatment. They moved to a 2-bedroom flat with one toilet and bathroom. Ismail was getting some pounds from the government also, which helped in a long way. Even after the marriage to Mr. Taiwo, Funmilayo still remained in her house and did her things without needing the help of her husband, who doesn't have it all himself. After 3 years, they had a son, a beautiful boy named Hassan. At least Funmilayo would not have to raise him alone. At last, things became a little bit harder for Funmilayo. One could say out of 3 jobs, she was now doing only 2. Funmilayo is now 35 years old. Life was not entirely sweet yet for her. Then came the hospital season. Her father fell sick first. Kidney complications, tests, admission, bills, fare. When Hajara called, Funmilayo sent everything she could. She borrowed money from friends she met, good friends. She worked extra shifts, cut her food, delayed rent, sent pounds until she thought her fingers would break from holding on. But what her father wanted was not just money. He wanted his daughter. He wanted to see the child who left with promises in her eyes. He wanted to hold his grandson. He wanted to tell her in person that he never blamed her. But Funmilayo had unstable papers, no savings for travel, no guarantee for re-entry, and responsibilities that would collapse if she left. She kept saying, "Daddy, I'm coming soon." He kept saying, "Take care of yourself, my daughter." One morning before dawn, the call came. He was gone. Funmilayo fell to the floor and screamed so loud. She was crying bitterly and uncontrollably. Grief abroad is different. It is incomplete. It is delayed. It is mechanical. You cry, then check your shift schedule. You mourn, then answer school emails. You break, then still pack lunch. She sent money for burial, joined the service on video call with her family as they all cried together, watched people lower her father into the ground. A man who gave everything for her school fees was buried without her there. Something in her cracked permanently that week. After that, she changed. She became more withdrawn, more careful with love, more suspicious of hope. She still smiled for her children, still worked, still functioned, but she no longer believed easily. Her mother also died some months later after a series of sicknesses. Funmilayo spent a lot on her parents' sickness well-being, and if we were to calculate it, it would be almost 11 million naira. She cried and cried. Her husband could not control her. She became sick from crying every day. Both her parents, whom she loved with her entire life, were gone without her seeing them again. The last time Funmilayo saw her parents were 14 years ago when she traveled to the UK. Then came the plot twist she never expected. One rainy evening, Ajara called from Lagos with a trembling voice. "Funmi, I saw Moruf." The name entered the room like poison. Her chest tightened. "Where?" "In the mosque. He gave testimony." Funmilayo almost laughed. "A testimony?" Yes, Moruf, the same man whose lies destroyed Ganiu's life, had become one of those polished men who wore white and talked about grace after ruining people in private. But that was not all. Ajara continued. "He said he wants to make peace, so he said he has been sick. He said there are things you don't know." Funmilayo's body went cold. That night, she could not sleep. Her husband asked, "Do you want to know?" She stared at the ceiling. "I don't know." But she did, because pain can be endured. It is unanswered pain that rots. Days later, after much hesitation, Funmilayo agreed to a video call. Moruf looked older, softer, but guilt sat on his face like an unpaid debt. He confessed, not beautifully, not nobly, but clearly enough. Yes, he had framed Ganiu. Yes, jealousy drove him. Yes, he feared Ganiu would pull away and expose some of his own dealings. Yes, he lied. Yes, he thought it would only teach him a lesson. No, he never expected deportation to happen so fast. No, he never imagined Funmilayo would suffer the way she did. And then he said the sentence that changed everything. Gani later knew that I did it, but he also used your name for things you never knew. He was not completely innocent, Funmilayo. The room spun. Funmilayo gripped the chair. Moruf explained that after Gani got involved with him financially, he began cutting corners too. Small things at first, nothing violent, but enough that when trouble came, his innocence was not as complete as he had claimed to her. Moruf's betrayal lit the fire, yes, but Ganyu had already been playing with the matches. The truth shattered the last clean memory she had been protecting. For years, Funmilayo had told herself Ganyu was a victim and we were destroyed by one wicked man. Now, the story had changed. Ganyu had also lied. Maybe not about everything, maybe not at the start, but enough. That is the thing about adulthood. The villains are rarely poor villains, and the victims are not always fully innocent. Truth grows layers with time. When Funmilayo later confronted Ganyu, he did not deny it for long. He simply said, tired and broken, I was trying to make money fast for us, for the child, for survivor. Funmilayo replied with tears in her voice, and look what survivor cost. Silence answered. That confrontation freed her more than revenge would have, because now she finally understood. She did not lose her life only because Nigeria was hard. She did not suffer only because her abroad was difficult. She suffered because desperation, secrecy, pride, and rushed decisions built a future on unstable ground. Ganyu got married 3 years after he was deported to Nigeria and had kids secretly, which eventually became not so much of a secret anymore. And that is one of the biggest lessons in the story. Jackpot is not a miracle. A plane ticket cannot heal poor planning, weak foundations, lack of support, or the wrong partner. Location can change your scenery, but it cannot automatically change your life. Months later, Funmilayo finally returned to Nigeria. Not as the triumphant success everyone once imagined, not as the failure she had feared, but as something more honest, a woman who had paid heavily for experience. Lagos looked both familiar and strange, louder than memory, softer than pain. She stood at her parents' graves with Ismail on one side and little Hassan in her husband's arms. The hair was hot, her hands trembled. She knelt and touched the earth. Daddy, Mommy, I came back. And then she cried the tears of 14 years. Not just for death, for absence, for youth lost, for dreams missold, for the girl who thought escape and healing were the same thing. Ismail stood quietly, eyes wet. He was old enough now to understand pieces of what his mother had carried. Hassan, too young to understand death, simply held Funmilayo's shoulder with his tiny hand. Sometimes, comfort does not come with explanation. It just comes. One evening, neighborhood girls gathered around Funmilayo after hearing she had come from the UK. Auntie, is it true life is better there? One asked. The old Funmilayo might have smiled and edited the truth. This time, she did not. She said, life can be better there for some people, but suffering also has a postcode. If you are going, go prepared. Go with skill, go with information, go with legal clarity, go with support. Don't sell your father's land, oh, your mother's wrapper, and your peace of mind because of social media pressure. Abroad is not a magic prayer point. The girls fell silent. She continued, and if you can build something here with dignity, do not despise that too quickly. That became the final lesson of our life story. Do not chase another country because people are posting filtered success. Ask what they are not posting. Ask what support they had. Ask what they lost. Ask whether your move is strategy or simply panic dressed as ambition. When Funmilayo returned to the UK after the visit, something had changed. Not abuse, not her responsibilities, not the cost of living, not the demands of motherhood. What changed was her relationship with her own story. She no longer told it with shame. She told it with truth. She loved. She had been betrayed. She had survived. She had buried parents from a distance. She had raised a son through loneliness. She had found love again. And maybe that was the real victory. Not that Jackpot saved her. Not that Nigeria ruined her. Not that the UK fulfilled her. But that in the middle of broken systems, broken promises, and broken dreams, Funmilayo did not lose her humanity. And for many in that diaspora, that is the battle nobody claps for. So when people shout, Jackpa, Jackpa, leave this country and your life will change, Funmilayo would sometimes smile sadly and say, yes, your life may change, but nobody tells you that sometimes the change comes with a price your soul is not ready to pay. My people, we have come to the end of this beautiful story. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Till next time. Bye-bye.